from the First Street Studios in South Tampa, Florida, it's time for another round of Last Call 76 with your host, Dan, Jay, and behind the camera, the one and only Jess.
They got a big UFC coming up this weekend. Couple of title fights.
Absolutely.
Somebody you know quite well, Raquel Pennington, fighting for the women's bantamweight belt against Buena Silva.
Yes.
Big shoes to fill there. Big shoes to fill. That was
Tough fight for her, but I'll tell you what, man. Rocky never ceases to amaze people. She comes back. She gets right back into contention. Maybe this is her time this time. She's had a few cracks at it before. Personal friend of hers. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's great. But let's talk about the other fight as well.
Ultimate Underdog. But real quick before we go on to that real fast.
Yeah.
What kind of shoes do they have? We talked about filling shoes. Whoever replaces Nick Saban, we got Gerard Mayo replacing Bill Belichick. We got Kellen DeBoer replacing Nick Saban. What kind of shoes is whoever wins this fight going to have to fill? Because they're taking the belt that Amanda Nunes held and, best pound for pound women's fighter that ever lived.
Well, I think we leave it where it is. It's not about your filling shoes. It's a new beginning.
Right. True.
Because there has to be multiple title defenses. There has to be huge fights that take place during that time. I mean, you got to knock Cyborg out. You got to knock Ronda Rousey out back to back before you're even in that conversation. But right now, let's just win the belt.
Carve your own legacy. Carve your own path.
Hopefully Raquel gets it done this time.
Yep.
Because she got a good support cast. She got a kid now. She's got Tisha. I mean, everything's going good in her life. I just hope it works out for her this time because she's been a good ambassador for the sport.
Absolutely.
And when our clothing company back then, when we were working with Grass Valley, sponsored her, along with Cowboy. So I'm really hoping that she gets it done this time. And it's not over. It's not undoable.
Right.
She has a crack at this.
It's any given Sunday, and she's tough. Yeah. She's tough as nails. Middleweight title, Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis.
Oh, Duplessis.
Duplessis.
Hey, I'll tell you, I know Dana White very well from the UFC days, and I'll say this: they put him in the crowd there with Gilbert's kids, right? Yeah. And he says that he knew better than to do that.
Yeah.
But that was a hype building of the fight. But I'll tell you this: Sean Strickland, if he shows up and does what he's supposed to do, it's a big fight for him. Duplessis is strong. He doesn't quit.
Mm-hmm.
But what Sean Strickland does very well, very much kind of like a Floyd Mayweather. Mm-hmm. He gets in that Philly shell. It's kind of a modified, but what you're doing is you got that shoulder and that jab working for you. And if you're tilting it, if that makes sense, and he gets in the shell. I'm not going to call it the Philly shell exactly, right. but you know what I mean? It's reminiscent of it. And when you can fight like that, you could throw. He's not knockout power necessarily guy, but if he can get in that shell or whatever we're gonna call it, some boxing expert,
the no-cow shell,
right? But Sean Strickland can throw mass punches out of that position, and he's very accurate. And he doesn't spar all the time with 4-ounce gloves, so he does a lot of. He does. And he doesn't use boxing gloves, so his precision is very tight.
Right.
But he keeps this really tight shell. Like I said, it's almost like a Philly shell modified.
Yep.
And he deflects a lot of, like if you look at the shoulder, he deflects a lot of punches when they come in from the right side. So he's like taking just a little bit off, right? So I don't know. I think Duplessis is a stronger guy. I think he's the future, so to speak, in the UFC. But Sean Strickland has a fighting chance here, especially with that jab. And we saw what he did to Adesanya. So I'm not sure on this. I'm going to go with Strickland only because I think Sean Strickland has got his mind a little bit right.
Yep.
And Sean, look, I know he's on our X. I'm not trying to say anything bad, but he can get, he can, sometimes the marbles aren't all there, right? Is that a good?
Sean had some stuff going on in his upbringing, so he vents his frustration.
I understand that, but I'm saying, there's some loose marbles there. Not
a little bit of loose cannon.
Yeah, right. Some of the things he says are kind of
off the beaten path.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. I was trying to find the words for it.
I got you.
But not a bad champion, right? I mean, he's he's really not belt oriented. You know that if you ever, been around him and sparred with him, hung out with him. But he is a little off the edge there a little bit with what's going on in the world, so to speak. But with that being said, he has the ability to win this fight because I think he's cleared his head now. I think with all the other things going on with all the other fighters, I think him winning the belt, even though he says, I just want to beat people up, that's him trying to hype it up. Way better than Kobe Covington.
Yeah.
Okay, off the beaten path, yes. But instead of just constantly talking, right, Sean's backed it up. Kobe has failed to do that.
Right.
Okay? So I just hope at this point, it looks like his everything's going well there. His mind's right, so to speak. I mean, we saw a little bit of this decline in Tony Ferguson with some of his issues that are, out there, so I'm not going to say it wrong.
Right.
But I believe Sean can win this fight. I think he's mentally in that place now where all that pain growing up as a child has kind of been, not going to say it's went away, but it's kind of...
He's learned how to manifest it.
Yeah, I think he's channeled it correctly. And now he's very confident. And a confident fighter that didn't have a lot of self-esteem, so to speak, all of a sudden found something that worked. And he's done a really good job with it. We got to give him some credit. Would I appreciate it if he would clean up some of his comments? Perhaps. Okay? But I'm not here to judge that.
Yeah.
But I'm here to judge him as a fighter. And if he can get through Du Plessis, I mean, we're talking... another major guy in the UFC that could stay there 2 or 3 years. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, listen, Strickland, I can't underemphasize how big of a win over Adesanya that was. Adesanya coming off the biggest win of his career. Adesanya is a hard guy to frustrate. Adesanya is a frustrator. Strickland had him all sorts of frustrated in that fight.
Just staying in his face.
Staying in his face. And, I mean, that to me was the step forward in Sean Strickland's career that I think he'd been looking for quite some time. I don't think he's looking back here. I don't think this is a Dave Monet. We're going way back to the Wayback Machine. I don't think this is a bless him, Forrest Griffin, okay, or a Rashad Evans one-off. Okay, and not to disrespect them. They're great fighters. They're all great fighters. But I think Strickland's going to have a little bit of a tighter one. I think this hot potatoing in the belt that's happening in 185-pound stops. I think Strickland's going to have a couple of successful defenses. I think he wins here.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, we'll close. I think he's at peace. Mm-hmm. I really do. You could see it in his attitude. It was a little shitty. Excuse my language. I'm allowed one once in a while. But now it's calming down a little.
Yep.
And I think he's learning to be a champion.
Absolutely.
And I think his support cast is good. I think people like him generally. They kind of miscalculated him early. He's a very nice guy, good in the community. Mm-hmm. He signs autographs till like 6 a.m. at a bar, whatever it is. But I think he's at peace. And a fighter that's at peace is a dangerous human being. Yeah. And we talked about that before. I'm going to close this. Like Mike Tyson took a long time to get at peace, right. if he ever got there.
Right.
And I think Sean has actually, I guess, buried the demons of his childhood and everything. And now he knows, I'm a champion. And you can start to see this transition in him. Yep. So anyway, if you have anything else, do you? If not, hey, thanks for tuning in on this one. We'll be back with you soon, but thanks and subscribe. Appreciate you. This episode of Last Call was brought to you by SJP Snapshots and Meeks Inc. Clothing and Apparel.